E aí, aqui é o Will, e hoje nós estaremos jogando Stanley Parable, um jogo que saiu de um mod de Half-Life, e hoje é um jogo independente. E a proposta do vídeo é mostrar todos os possíveis finais do jogo, todos os caminhos a serem tomados. Então, a gente começa aqui, já pelo menu inicial a gente vê o quanto é estranho, um computador dentro de um computador aqui dentro de outro. Então, eu vou começar o jogo aqui. Eu vou procurar falar menos, pois o narrador fala o tempo todo no jogo. E então eu não quero que fique muito confuso e nem quero atrapalhar. Então, vamos começar.
This is the story of a man named Stanley. Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number 427. Employee number 427's job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and he pushed buttons on a keyboard. Orders came to him through a monitor on his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee 427 did every day of every month of every year. And although others might have considered it soul-rending, Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in, as though he had been made exactly for this job. And Stanley was happy. And then one day, something very peculiar happened. Something that would forever change Stanley. Something he would never quite forget. He had been at his desk for nearly an hour when he realized that not one single order had arrived on the monitor for him to follow. No one had showed up to give him instructions, call a meeting, or even say hi. Never in all his years at the company had this happened, this complete isolation. Something was very clearly wrong. Shocked, frozen solid, Stanley found himself unable to move for the longest time. But as he came to his wits and regained his senses, he got up from his desk and stepped out of his office.
Então já eu que tomei o controle do personagem. Eu sou o Stanley e eu vou começar pelo caminho principal, que é seguindo as ordens do narrador. Então, vamos lá.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Nós vamos passar por esse lugar várias e várias e várias vezes, porque todo início é praticamente igual até chegar nessas duas portas.
When Stanley came to a set of two open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Eu vou entrar pela esquerda, como ele disse. Como eu disse, eu vou seguir todas as ordens deles para chegar no final, digamos, normal.
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
Aqui os slides. Então vamos seguir a história.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Se a gente for por baixo tem outro final. Aqui nós temos trancado. Trancado também.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Shocked, unraveled, Stanley wondered in disbelief who orchestrated this, what dark secret was being held from him. What he could not have known was that the keypad behind the boss's desk guarded the terrible truth that his boss had been keeping from him. And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret PIN number. 2845. But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known this. Yet incredibly, by simply pushing random buttons on the keypad, Stanley happened to input the correct code by sheer luck. Amazing. he stepped into the newly opened passageway. Descending deeper into the building, Stanley realized he felt a bit peculiar. It was a stirring of emotion in his chest, as though he felt more free to think for himself, to question the nature of his job. Why did he feel this now, when for years it had never occurred to him? This question would not go unanswered for long. Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility.
Aqui também tem uma outra opção, onde vai para outro final. Mas vamos seguir em frente, seguindo o locutor. Temos botão, vou apertar.
The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley thought to himself. Did he have the strength to find out?
Então nós estamos ligando os comandos para ativar o local. Agora vamos ligar as câmeras.
Now the monitors jumped to life, their true nature revealed. Each bore the number of an employee in the building, Stanley's co-workers. The lives of so many individuals reduced to images on a screen, and Stanley, one of them, eternally monitored in this place where freedom meant nothing.
Então todos os funcionários estão sendo monitorados por câmeras, cada um numerado, sendo pelo chefe dele.
This mind control facility, it was too horrible to believe. It couldn't be true. Had Stanley really been under someone's control all this time? Was this the only reason he was happy with his boring job? That his emotions had been manipulated to accept it blindly?
Ele descobriu que ele está sendo manipulado. A mente dele está sendo manipulada e ordenada. Por isso que ele era feliz no trabalho, aquele trabalho idiota de ficar apertando botões. Então agora nós seguimos para...
No, he refused to believe it. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control? Never! It was unthinkable, wasn't it? Was it even possible? Had he truly spent his entire life utterly blind to the world?
No caso, ele continua sendo comandado porque o narrador está comandando a história. É uma questão de perspectiva, isso.
But here was the proof, the heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions, happy or sad or content, walking, eating, working, all of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life. For he would dismantle the controls once and for all.
Então o narrador diz que eu vou desligar o campo de energia, a força, né, do local, para que a máquina nunca mais seja usada por ninguém para comandar nenhuma mente. Esse jogo é meio filosófico e cada final que tu faz ele te dá uma perspectiva nova sobre o jogo.
And when at last he found the source of the room's power, he knew it was his duty, his obligation, to put an end to this horrible place and to everything it stood for.
Então eu vou desligar. No próximo final eu vou ligar para que vocês vejam outro final. Tá tudo escuro, vejo um filete de alguma coisa lá.
Blackness and a rising chill of uncertainty. Was it over? Yes. He had won. He had defeated the machine. Unshackled himself from someone else's command. Freedom was mere moments away. And yet, even as the immense door slowly opened, Stanley reflected on how many puzzles still lay unsolved. Where had his co-workers gone? How had he been freed from the machine's grasp? What other mysteries did this strange building hold? But as sunlight streamed into the chamber, he realized none of this mattered to him, for it was not knowledge or even power that he had been seeking, but happiness. Perhaps his goal had not been to understand, but to let go. No longer would anyone tell him where to go, what to do, or how to feel. Whatever life he lives, it will be his. And that was all he needed to know. It was perhaps the only thing worth knowing. Stanley stepped through the open door.
Então esse é o final normal, que ele sai do prédio, né? E vai viver a vida dele. Então,
Stanley felt the cool breeze upon his skin, the feeling of liberation, the immense possibility of the new path before him. This was exactly the way, right now, that things were meant to happen. And Stanley was happy.
ó, que bonito. Então eu refiz todo o caminho até aqui, onde a gente vai entrar no Facility Power. E eu vou ligar dessa vez, deixar
Here
ligado.
was the proof, the heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions, happy or sad or content. Walking, eating, working, all of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life. For he would dismantle the controls once and for all.
Então agora eu vou apertar o botão de ligar, onde eu teoricamente assumiria o controle da facção, do local. Então, vamos apertar.
Oh, Stanley, you didn't just activate the controls, did you? After they kept you enslaved all these years, you go and you try to take control of the machine for yourself. Is that what you wanted? Control? Oh, Stanley, I applaud your effort, I really do. But you need to understand, there's only so much that machine can do. You were supposed to let it go, turn the controls off, and leave. If you want to throw my story off track, you're going to have to do much better than that. I'm afraid you don't have nearly the power you think you do. For example, and I believe you'll find this pertinent, Stanley suddenly realized he had just initiated the network's emergency detonation system. In the event that this machine is activated without proper DNA identification, nuclear detonators are set to explode, eliminating the entire complex. How long until detonation then? Let's say 2 minutes. Ah, now this is making things a little more fun, isn't it, Stanley? It's your time to shine. You are the star. It's your story now. Shape it to your heart's desires. Oh, this is much better than what I had in mind. What a shame we have so little time left to enjoy it. Mere moments until the bomb goes off. But what precious moments each one of them is. More time to talk about you, about me, where we're going, what all this means. I barely know where to start. What's that? You'd like to know where your co-workers are? A moment of solace before you're obliterated? All right, I'm in a good mood. You're gonna die anyway. I'll tell you exactly what happened to them. I erased them. I turned off the machine. I set you free. Of course, that was merely in this instance of the story. Sometimes when I tell it, I simply let you sit there in your office forever, pushing buttons endlessly and then dying alone. Other times, I let the office sink into the ground, swallowing everyone inside, or I let it burn to a crisp. I have to say this, though, this version of events has been rather amusing. Watching you try to make sense of everything and take back the control wrested away from you, it's quite rich. I almost hate to see it go. But I'm sure whatever I come up with on the next go-around will be even better. My goodness, only 34 seconds left. But I'm enjoying this so much. You know what? To hell with it. I'm going to put some extra time on the clock, why not? These are precious additional seconds, Stanley. Time doesn't grow on trees. Oh dear me, what's the matter, Stanley? Is it that you have no idea where you're going or what you're supposed to be doing right now? Or did you just assume when you saw that timer that something in this room was capable of turning it off? I mean, look at you. Running from button to button, screen to screen, clicking on every little thing in this room. These numbered buttons, no, these colored ones, or maybe this big red button, or this door. Everything, anything, something here will save me. Why would you think that, Stanley? That this video game can be beaten? Won? Solved? Do you have any idea what your purpose in this place is? Stanley, you're in for quite a disappointment. But here's a spoiler for you. That timer isn't a catalyst to keep the action moving along. It's just seconds ticking away to your death. You're only still playing instead of watching a cutscene because I want to watch you for every moment that you're powerless. To see you made humble. This is not a challenge. It's a tragedy. You wanted to control this world, that's fine. But I'm going to destroy it first, so you can't. Take a look at the clock, Stanley. That's 30 seconds you have left to struggle. 30 seconds until a big boom and then nothing. No ending here, just you being blown to pieces. Will you cling desperately to your frail life, or will you let it go peacefully? Another choice. Make it count, or don't. It's all the same to me, all a part of the joke. And believe me, I will be laughing at every second of your inevitable life from the moment we fade in until the moment I say, happily ever after. Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility.
Em vez de irmos pra lá, agora que eu já apertei os dois botões, eu vou pro escape, que seria o terceiro final, então.
Although this passageway had the word escape written on it, the truth was that at the end of this hall, Stanley would meet his violent death.
Ele tá dizendo que eu vou morrer se eu continuar por aqui.
The door behind him was not shut. Stanley still had every opportunity to turn around and get back on track. At this point, Stanley was making a conscious, concerted effort to walk forward and willingly confront his death.
Tô dizendo que eu vou confrontar minha morte e eu vou pular. Eu ainda tô caindo. Eu não morri ainda.
As the machine whirred into motion and Stanley was inched closer and closer to his demise, it reflected that his life had been of no consequence whatsoever. Stanley can't see the bigger picture. He doesn't know the real story, trapped forever in his narrow vision of what this world is. Perhaps his death was of no great loss, like plucking the eyeballs from a blind man. So he resigned and willingly accepted this violent end to his brief and shallow life. Farewell, Stanley.
Pelo jeito eu vou morrer. Tchau, mundo cruel.
Farewell, Stanley, cried the narrator, as Stanley was led helplessly into the enormous metal jaws. In a single visceral instant, Stanley was obliterated as the machine crushed every bone in his body, killing him instantly.
Uma outra narradora, não é mais o narrador principal. Eu fui solto antes de ser morto. Vamos ver pra onde é que vai.
And yet it would be just a few minutes before Stanley would restart the game, back in his office, as alive as ever. What exactly did the narrator think he was going to accomplish? When every path you can walk has been created for you long in advance, death becomes meaningless, making life the same. Do you see now? Do you see that Stanley was already dead from the moment he hit start?
Tá dizendo que eu tô morto desde que eu comecei a jogar, então aqui é o meu escritório, onde eu começo. A parte onde a gente passa, toda a maquete do jogo, digamos assim. Aqui é uma sala onde... Ó, as duas portas. E aqui a decisão não mostra mais nada, porque tudo depende das tuas decisões. Então, aqui mostra várias coisas. As primeiras portas. Sobre a criação do jogo. Os 5 botões, aqueles que a gente aperta lá, que eu apertei, no segundo final. Eles fazem sonzinho. Nada demais. Aqui nós temos os créditos escritos na parede. E toda essa sala aqui mostra partes da criação do jogo. Coisas que foram descartadas e eles colocaram aqui só pra vermos. Não dá pra ver parte do narrador. Então, ó, escape, partes do jogo, concept art, essas coisas que seriam extras no jogo, que tu abriria. Normalmente nós abrimos nos jogos depois que completamos tudo. Aqui eles fizeram um dos finais, tu cruza por tudo isso, tu pode ver várias coisas, como aqui uma outra maquete de um lugar que foi descartado, provavelmente. Botões e alavancas e o pause do jogo que eles mudaram. Aqui é outra parte. Então nós temos um elevador, control room, como é que seria? Vamos seguir o final.
Oh, look at these two. How they wish to destroy one another. How they wish to control one another. How they both wish to be free.
Então aqui ele está dizendo que vou desligar o jogo, Stanley Parable. Então tu clica na alavanca e...
Can you see? Can you see how much they need one another? No, perhaps not. Sometimes these things cannot be seen. But listen to me. You can still save these two. You can stop the program before they both fail. Push escape and press quit. There's no other way to beat this game. As long as you move forward, you'll be walking someone else's path. Stop now and it'll be your only true choice. Whatever you do, choose it. Don't let time choose for you. Don't let time...
Então ali foi o nosso terceiro final, o Stanley morre. E agora, em vez de subir a escada, nós vamos descer a escada.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office. But Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss, admitting he had left his post during work hours. He might be fired for that. And in such a competitive economy, why had he taken that risk? All because he believed everyone had vanished? His boss would think he was crazy. And then something occurred to Stanley. Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy. All of my co-workers blinking mysteriously out of existence in a single moment for no reason at all? None of it made any logical sense. And as Stanley pondered this, he began to make other strange observations. For example, why couldn't he see his feet when he looked down? Why did doors close automatically behind him wherever he went? And for that matter, these rooms were starting to look pretty familiar. Were they simply repeating? No, Stanley said to himself, this is all too strange. This can't be real. And at last, he came to the conclusion that had been on the tip of his tongue. He just hadn't found the words for it. "I'm dreaming!" he yelled. "This is all a dream." Oh, what a relief Stanley felt to have finally found an answer, an explanation. His co-workers weren't actually gone. He wasn't going to lose his job. He wasn't crazy after all. And he thought to himself, I suppose I'll wake up soon. I'll have to go back to my boring real-life job pushing buttons. I may as well enjoy this while I'm still lucid. So, he imagined himself flying and began to gently float above the ground. Then he imagined himself soaring through space on a magical starfield, and it too appeared. It was so much fun, and Stanley marveled that he had still not woken up. How was he remaining so lucid? And then perhaps the strangest question of them all entered Stanley's head. One he was amazed he hadn't asked himself sooner. Why is there a voice in my head dictating everything that I'm doing and thinking? Now the voice was describing itself being considered by Stanley, who found it particularly strange. I'm dreaming about a voice Describing me, thinking about how it's describing my thoughts, he thought. And while he thought it all very odd, and wondered if this voice spoke to all people in their dreams, the truth was that, of course, this was not a dream. How could it be? Was Stanley simply deceiving himself, believing that if he's asleep, he doesn't have to take responsibility for himself? Stanley is as awake right now as he's ever been in his life. Now, hearing the voice speak these words was quite a shock to Stanley. After all, he knew for certain, beyond a doubt, that this was in fact a dream. Did the voice not see him float and make the magical stars just a moment ago? How else would the voice explain all that? This voice was a part of himself too. Surely, if he could just... He would prove it. He would prove that he was in control, that this was a dream. So he closed his eyes gently, and he invited himself to wake up. He felt the cool weight of the blanket on his skin, the press of the mattress on his back, the fresh air of a world outside this one. Let me wake up, he thought to himself. I'm through with this dream. I wish it to be over. Let me go back to my job. Let me continue pushing the buttons. Please, it's all I want. I want my apartment, and my wife, and my job. All I want is my life exactly the way it's always been. My life is normal. I am normal. Everything will be fine. I am okay. Stanley began screaming. Please, someone, wake me up. My name is Stanley. I have a boss. I have an office. I am real. Please, just someone tell me I am real. I must be real. I must be. Can anyone hear my voice? Who am I? Who am I? And everything went black. This is the story of a woman named Mariella. Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed, gathered her belongings, and walked to her place of work. But on this particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. And although she would soon turn to go call for an ambulance, for just a few brief moments she considered the strange man. He was obviously crazy. This much she knew. Everyone knows what crazy people look like. And in that moment, she thought to herself how lucky she was to be normal. I am sane. I am in control of my mind. I know what is real and what isn't. It was comforting to think this, and in a certain way, seeing this man made her feel better. But then she remembered the meeting she had scheduled for that day. The very important people whose impressions of her would affect her career, and by extension, the rest of her life. She had no time for this, so it was only a moment that she stood there, staring down at the body. And then she turned and ran.
Então esse foi o quarto final. Agora todos os finais são pro lado direito das portas, então eu vou acabar esse vídeo aqui com os 4 primeiros finais. Então espero que vocês tenham gostado. Deixem o seu gostei aí embaixo e comentem. Comentário sempre é muito importante. Valeu, então a gente se vê no próximo vídeo de Stanley Parable.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. What? Stanley was in such a rush to get through the story as quickly as possible, he didn't even have a single minute to just let the narrator talk. That kind of anxiety isn't healthy, so he relaxed for a few moments with some calming New Age music.
Isso acontece quando tu entra na porta, tu aperta o código da porta antes do narrador dizer qual que é o código da porta. Ele fica bravo, toca uma música e não abre a porta.
Feeling soothed and rejuvenated, Stanley calmly walked forward into the opened passageway.
Mudou as salas. Não lembro de ter passado por aqui.
Okay, I think we all know the drill by now. Blah, blah, blah. Dark secrets, the keypad. Stanley pushes some buttons. Oh, hey, look, it's a new passageway. Quelle surprise.
Isso acontece depois que tu aperta os botões antes dele narrar. Ele abre a porta automaticamente, já que tu já sabe o código mesmo.